Hey, it's Sam, and I'm making this video update to describe a shift that's happening. You know, since the end of August, Mercury has been in Virgo. Mercury was forward and then retrograde. So it's been hanging out in Virgo literally since the end of August, more than 2 months. Mercury will be leaving Virgo and entering Libra on the 29th of October, later in the day. So, you know, Mercury's about to shift and go into Libra. So it's important to understand this juncture between Virgo and Libra and what this means. And in fact, by this time next week, by early November, we're also going to have Mars, Venus, also in Virgo join Rahu. So I'll talk about that at a future time, but there's some big shifts happening, especially with Mercury, Venus, and Mars. You know, we've had this big pileup in Leo for quite a while. Now that's about to shift, starting with Mercury. So, as I say, since the end of August, Mercury has been in Virgo. So it's been a time where we've been really, scrutinizing, how things are organized. I've talked about this quite a bit with what with the eclipses also happening during that time. It's been a big emphasis put on power and how that power is organized, which is Leo and Virgo, how the kingdom is organized, and things like that. And so now we actually have the sun in Libra. Now we're going to have Mercury go there. So the sort of metaphor for Virgo to Libra is how, if we start with Leo is the kingdom, Virgo is organizing that kingdom and delegating all of these tasks. Libra is sort of where, so that everyone can enjoy it. And so everyone is valued and respected and appreciated. And especially the individuals. So, Libra is also where we take our passion and our heart's desire and we want to connect it with other people, often and most stereotypically in the form of relationship. So Mercury, when it's in Libra, let's say in someone's natal chart or in the sky or whatever, a person will have a strong connection and desire to communicate with others, to be flexible, to accommodate another person's, wishes and desires. Libra is the sign where we want there to be equality, and if I have to satisfy my desires at your expense, then I'm not happy. This is the sort of credo of Libra, where if my happiness comes at your expense, then I'm also not happy. And so, but how to do that, right? It's kind of hard to know how to do it, especially, for instance, with Mars areas of life. Mars is where we're supposed to establish our boundaries and where we're supposed to be self-willed and self-motivated. Sun areas also, it's the glory of our individuality, which is why the sun is debilitated in Libra, because it's not about harmonizing our energy with others when we're talking about Sun or Mars themes. Mercury, however, is very good at that. This is a very natural thing for Mercury to do. Mercury is where we're flexible, where we want to understand things, where we don't have a strong opinion. People get these things mixed up a lot especially when they compare like Mercury and Mars, for instance. Mars is about strong opinions, because an opinion is a black and white thing. It's a conviction where I think this, and I'm willing to defend that opinion. And opinions are, they're basically our principles, the ideas that surround our principles. So when we have a principle about something, like let's say, everyone has a right to life. Let's say women's rights and abortion rights. Let's say that's a belief that we have. Then we're going to have a strong opinion about it. The opinion comes to defend the idea. The opinion defends the idea. Let's say our opinion is there shouldn't be right to life. Okay? Then let's say that's our belief, that life is sacred and the government should outlaw this because it's murder. Then we're going to have a strong opinion that comes to defend that belief. The belief comes from Jupiter. Jupiter shows our beliefs. Mars shows the strong opinions that defend those beliefs and therefore leads us into actions, black and white actions. Doing this, not doing that. Ultimately, our opinions, in fact, this is why our spiritual principles need to turn into opinions on some level. This is the benefit of having a strong Mars. There's nothing wrong with opinions as long as our teachings are right and are uplifting, which means to say that once we understand the true nature of life, and I am the Paramatma and I'm the Supreme Self, and that's the meaning, then I'm going to get a very strong opinion about that, which means I need to be strong, and I need to find the source of my own weakness inside and then be disciplined to fix that rather than argue with others about my external opinions. That's the transformation of Mars. So I'm talking about that because that's what an opinion is. It's a black and white idea that we become very fixed on, and it's in support of a principle. Mercury is not that. Mercury comes next. Mercury comes after Mars and before Jupiter. It's right in between. Very important planet there. That planetary order is a very important principle. Mercury comes after Mars to take those opinions, because again, our first opinions come from the way we were raised. We all grew up with some view of the world, and we were taught by our parents. We had some teachings and some guidance. Like for instance, my teaching and guidance, I grew up in a very rural area of the world. It's actually in rural Maryland. People around me were, hunters, fishermen, grew up killing animals, eating them. That's just what life was to me for a long time. Right? I mean, that's how I was raised. So if someone were to ask me, when I was 10 years old, is it okay to eat animals? I'd say, yeah. Is it okay to kill them? Yeah. Because that's all I know. But again, then you get older and you start exploring life and figuring things out for yourself, curious, and then curiosity comes. This is all Mercury stuff. You become experimental and you look for other ways to see things. You're curious about the nature of the world, rather than just having a strong conviction or opinion about the way things were, like, based on what you were raised or based on what you're used to. So that's what Mercury is about, and of course that makes us curious about other people, other ways of doing things, and we question, and we're not trying to find an opinion with Mercury. This is a big thing to understand about Mercury. So many people don't understand this. The difference is this. Intelligence, like Mercury intelligence, doesn't have a conclusion or an opinion necessarily. It's always open. What I mean to say is, Mars is a very strong, this is the way it is. That's what an opinion is. It's actually a closed statement. It's a closed idea. You have plenty of them. You have plenty of opinions based on what you think is right. You think murder is wrong. Probably. That's an opinion you have. You might say, well, of course, everybody knows that. Everybody doesn't know it. And the part of you that is definite about that is Mars, and you're willing to defend it. Mercury, however, and in fact, true intelligence is not closed off. True intelligence is not an opinion. Okay? Because, for instance, I even use the example of, let's say that you learn the true nature of reality and what inspires you, which is the Jupiter thing, and your opinion is then, okay, this is right, and this is wrong. That would compel you to take action, which is what Mars is about. Doing the things that you know are right. That's the strength of Mars. If someone were to ask you why, however well you really understand it, you would verbalize and articulate through Mercury words, through the language of Mercury. But Mercury is ever curious to things being something different and changing. For instance, let's say studying astrology. Okay? People often think, and it's a problem with people who have a really prominent who have a really prominent Mars. It's also a problem when Mars, let's say, gets in fire signs, or especially when when Mercury gets in signs ruled by Mars, especially, in particular Aries, is we form an opinion too quick. We form the opinion too quick. Mercury then becomes opinionated, and Mercury is not about opinions. Mercury is about gathering information and being curious and being happy to gather the information. So I'm contrasting this because there's a very interesting difference between Mercury and Mars that many people don't get. Understanding the way your brain actually works is important. Mercury is the buddhi, the intellect, which is always open and looking for new ways to understand, interpret, connect ideas, connect thoughts. This is very important in astrology or anything that you study, is to see how it's related to other things and to not get boxed into strong opinions and, but I thought it was this, now you're saying this, what is it? And then think like, I need everything to be sensible and logical, otherwise I'm confused. Mercury finds intelligence in those things, and true intelligence comes by being able to hold and understand paradox. Like, for instance, you can understand paradox in the sense that, like, you can feel like, for instance, something like, we're separate, yet we're one. But how could it be both? Well, because you do have a separate identity, but that separate identity is also part of oneness. You can hold that paradox. Some people can't. Well, which is it? Because they're making it too Marsy, too black and white. So the thing is, Mars has been in Virgo where it's exalted, because Mars in Virgo is very practical, and that fast nature to try to understand things isn't a very practical sign, the sign of Virgo, which is an earth sign. And it moves into Libra, where, again, we take that practicality and that practical structure and try to connect it with others. And where we're willing to accommodate others, where we're willing to, speak about those things that are important to them, try to understand the nature of the world through their eyes. So it's very good for Libra areas of life. Whereas again, Mars, because it's about black and white things, is difficult. The Sun can be difficult in Libra because it's also about black and white. Mercury is about information gathering, staying open. Another person, for instance, this is why it's so interesting as well, because Mercury is curious. It's not trying to formulate an opinion about the person. This is what makes a relationship work. When you're always curious about the other person. You're curious. Oh, why are you doing that? Oh, finding the beauty and the joy in the other person and in trying to please the other person, for instance. These are things that make relationships work. And so, you'll be able to see that, that experience, let's say, come to the aid of relationships for the next couple weeks as Mercury goes through Libra. And again, in a week or so, we'll have Mars and Venus both in Virgo join Rahu, and I'll talk about that when it happens. But notice the shift from practical, from the practical assessments of Virgo to a more connected experience, trying to connect your ideas with another person's ideas, adjust and accommodate their views and things like that for the next couple weeks. So in general, it could be pretty good. One of the things that is going to happen, though, is before Mars and Venus come into Virgo, Mercury and the Sun are also going to be hemmed between Saturn and Rahu. Then once Venus goes into Virgo, the hemming is done, but there's still going to be some hemming. Both Mercury and the Sun will be hemmed in Libra because Saturn is in Scorpio and Rahu will be in Virgo by himself. So there could be some pressure on our relationships too, but Mercury could be there to try and facilitate. And debilitated Sun can also, lower that individuality a little bit. So you might find that relationships might get a little reprieve here for a bit, but one of the things to know is that they're not doing so good right now because of Venus in Leo join Mars and Jupiter, and then Venus is going to be in Virgo where it's debilitated with Mars and Rahu. So Venus things are a little hammered right now. They're not going to get much better. So it's good to use that facility and that quality of Mercury to, maybe connect with things that are more, that are larger than just our romantic relationships. For instance, creativity is good. A lot of, editing and fixing up things and sort of tidying up things has been good. Once Venus goes into Virgo, there will also be an exchange between Venus and Mercury, which helps to really hold things together. But it holds things together in the form of karmas, like it holds karmas together. But the planet still feels the same way. Venus is still going to be under quite a bit of stress, but the things Venus tries to move forward will be supported by the exchange. That's a little more subtle. I'll talk about that a little bit more when it happens. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this big shift of Mercury. Since the end of August, it's been in Virgo. It's going to go into Libra now, where we might see some, little bump in relationship, and, certainly also maybe good for some types of creative things, especially as they relate to other people.